Hello and welcome to Business on the Wire. I'm Mitali Mukherjee. Earlier this week, the center announced that in its third phase, it was opening up vaccinations to now include anyone above the age of 18, and of course, that the states were being brought into the process. Here's a couple of key outcomes or key decisions that were announced in what we know so far. Vaccine manufacturers will supply 50% of their monthly released doses to the central government, and they will be free to supply the remaining doses to the state governments and in the opening market. However, manufacturers will declare prices in advance for the vaccine supplied to the state government and in the open market. So at this point, there seems to be no price control that has been set for any of these manufacturers. And based on that price, state governments, private hospitals, industrial establishments, they can all buy the vaccine doses from the manufacturer. How does that work in practice, and what are the ramifications for states that may now be facing a cash crisis of sorts in an already flailing situation in terms of funding these vaccines? Joining me to talk about that is K. Sujata Rao. She's former Secretary of Health and Family Welfare with the Government of India. Thank you, Ms. Rao, for joining in and speaking with me. I want your initial thoughts on this new mechanism that has been announced with regards to vaccination.
We just have only the announcements. We don't have the rules as yet, which they are now apparently formulating. So from the announcements, it looks as if, the vaccine availability will increase because it's being liberalized. But it's not that easy. And what do I mean by that? I mean that right now we have in hand two companies who are providing us the vaccine, right? Now, by saying that others are also welcome to join, they always were. Nobody had hindered them. There was no ban on anybody else also entering into the Indian market. So that's not a correct understanding that is being given, that the liberalization will allow others to come. What they probably have done by using the word liberalization is that foreign companies, which may have an FDA approval, but when they want to come into India, have to do something called a bridging study.
Yeah.
A small sample. In my time, it used to be 500. Others could do, now I think they do 1,500 and so on. And the bridging study is really to say, try your vaccine, your product on Indians, because Indians have a different genetic pool as compared to the Americans and other foreign and Westerners. So it is just to see that that's efficacy and its adverse events are not many and so on and so forth. This bridging study is required. Now, where it came to AstraZeneca, and because of the urgency of the situation, we exempted them and allowed them the emergency approval, which is agreed to as per the 2019 amendment of the Drugs Act. And so was Covaxin. Bharat Biotech was also exempted from having to submit the phase 3 trial results, and they got an emergency approval to do marketing under several caveats. So now they're giving a similar playing field to Pfizer, who, when they wanted to enter into India, were told they have to do a bridging study, and then they withdrew. Or say Johnson & Johnson or Moderna, whoever these companies are, they might have to come and do the bridging study. Where Sputnik is concerned, already I think the Reddy labs are far advanced and they're doing it. So this is, so they mean by liberalizing this aspect, they may be able to get more vaccines into the market. So that is one aspect of yesterday's policy. But I have my doubts. The second is that all the state ministers, chief ministers, were asking for decentralization. Yep. What does decentralization mean? It doesn't mean that the government of India abandons its duty of providing vaccine to the states. That has been the understanding all these years. After all, containing infectious diseases that cross borders is in the concurrent list of India's constitution. So it is as much a responsibility of the government of India as it is of the state government to see that we get we contain the COVID pandemic. So in such infectious diseases, whether it is all the vaccine preventable diseases under the universal immunization program, or it's polio or any other vaccine that we've introduced, MMR, Hep C, Hep B, all these, it's the central government that procures the vaccine and subsidies it to the state. Sometimes they also give the vaccines, they give the infrastructure and so on and so forth. So this is the very first time that I'm seeing a central government saying to the states, you go to the market and procure the vaccines. What is the negotiating power of a state individually to be able to do that? So that raises a lot of questions, because I'm not so sure that it will send a very healthy competitive market and prices will fall. I'm afraid there will be greater inequity between states, because the poorer states the weaker states will get denied of the vaccine. So these are some of the features which I was a bit worried about yesterday's announcement.
What does it, how do you think it will shape up for any state, ma'am? Just to point this as a picture, now that there's liberalization in terms of pricing, how do you think they'll have to go about it, and what kind of...
the issue is that yesterday's policy had one more disturbing feature, and that is they said that the companies will be permitted to set the price.
Yeah.
I've never come across anything like that. Even a shopkeeper that we know very well dare not set the apple's price. And I will negotiate with him. And if he wants to sell, fine. And if I want to buy, fine. So, it's not as if a pharma company can set the price and say, take it or leave it. It has to be left to the states to negotiate with them. But a better scenario is that the central government fixes the price and says there's one uniform price. Wherever you are, you may purchase with it. Now, the difficulty of this pricing being left to the pharma companies is that, if your supply is located in Maharashtra, he may give the Maharashtra government the dose, charge them 100 rupees. But if he has to transport it, say, to Meghalaya, it costs money. And that he will pile on to the unit cost of the dose. So it may cost 300 rupees in Meghalaya. So where does poor Meghalaya get that kind of money? So neither is central government said they'll reimburse and pick up the costs, nor did they say that we will ensure that you get it at a fair price, which we will negotiate on your behalf. All those are loose ends, and we don't know what's happening. So it's one state against another. So Gujarat may come round tomorrow and say, oh, Maharashtra is giving you 100, I'll give you 120 rupees. And the whole supply will go to Gujarat instead of Maharashtra, which probably needs it much more. So this kind of unhealthy interstate competitions also can come. So one is inequity, another is one state outsmarting the other state, and the whole thing can be a mess, because then that state which has power to negotiate and the money to buy will get the vaccine, not those who really need it, epidemiologically speaking. So it's not a very sustainable solution. I'm not sure it will work out at all.
What will the states do in that case, Ms. Rao? Because this will ultimately have to
be... Well, the states are right now...
Yeah.
Well, right now, I get the impression that the states are shell-shocked. And they're shell-shocked because, forget the money part of it and the negotiating part of it. The Prime Minister also said from May 1st, plus 18s will be also made eligible.
Yeah.
That gives us 10 days. In 10 days, how do you get the vaccine? The existing vaccine itself is running out. And you already had those above 45s. Now, before every health secretary's office, you'll find all these youngsters standing in the queue saying, we are eligible, you vaccinate us. Where's the vaccine? So, I think it's very muddle-headed. I'm afraid they've not thought through it. I don't know who gives these ideas to the PM and how they get announced. I'm myself very confused.
Since you've been in that position as health secretary, I just wanted to walk through the numbers with you to get an estimate of, the mismatch that we're talking about here, Ms. Rao. When we were looking at a 45 plus age group, I think we were looking at something around 345 million. Now we're looking at close to 600 million. Our own recent estimates at The Wire indicated that our run rate right now for vaccines is at about 24 lakh vaccines a day. How much of a mismatch do you reckon we're looking at come May 1st?
No, that doesn't worry me. I don't think you need to take that 24 lakhs very seriously, because I know every state can really ramp up very rapidly if they want to. You have to remember that we have a huge capacity and capability in our country. 26 million kids on one single day, if you remember, were being vaccinated with polio. And this vaccination by polio means some fellow sitting on an island, some tribal sitting on top of a hill, somebody traveling in a train, somebody sitting inside a bus, and somebody sitting in a slum, somebody is in the field. All these kids, wherever they were hauled up, and they were all vaccinated on that one single day. That's our reach, and that's our ability. So stepping up this 26 lakhs to something like, we can go far, far above, hugely, because now even the private sector, that time universal immunization is only little kids, so you can say it's the government which did it. But now even adults need it. So the private sector is also going to be with you. And if you leave it to the states, and I think this is what they meant by decentralization, leave it to the states to say how and who they're going to rope in to expand the vaccination sites and the vaccinators, instead of you dictating who should vaccinate whom, where, under, and what. Those decisions can be left to the local bodies. So I think ramping up is not at all a problem one bit. I'm more worried about the supply side. Is there going to be that kind of vaccine? And I don't think we're going to see much good news till July.
There is a view, as you were lining out earlier, Ms. Rao, that now a base price will be set and then states will have to determine what they pay plus on the base price. And there is also a sinking feeling that this is exactly what the private firms were asking the government to do. Has this decision sort of played right in the field of and on the side of private manufacturers rather than the needs of states at this point?
I do believe that. I strongly believe that the government has been far too generous with the pharma companies. The government is not so weak that they are dependent on the goodwill of the pharma companies. They jolly well produce and manufacture the vaccine, and they jolly well supply it to us at a price dictated by us, because this is a national emergency and we can easily declare the commodity as an essential commodity, and under compulsory licensing, we can dictate the price. And we will not allow exports. So, the government is not some weak, whiny organization that is beholden to the goodwill of the pharma companies to manufacture. So I don't think at all this caving into the industry was required. You have given them grants. After all, the Serum Institute, Mr. Poonawalla complains a lot, but he got almost $600 million from Gavi, from Bill Gates. The whole technology has come from abroad. He hasn't invested a pie on it. All the clinical trials were done abroad. He didn't spend a pie on that. Even the bridging that he had to do, even that has been suspended. Rules have been bent. But having said that, yes, he may be having still a need, because after all, adding infrastructure is capital intensive. And business has been down because with the lockdown, everything did get suspended. I'm willing to grant that there may be some cash flow problems. It's for the government to sit down, determine what is the gap and fill it up. I have no problem with that partnership. And if government feels that, yes, then he has a gap of 3,000 crores, so be it. But you negotiate and say, okay, I give you this advance of 3,000 crores, but you will give me this much of vaccine for $10 or whatever it is, some price. So there's no need for you to give him a market, give him export permissions, give him a license to sell to private market, because 50% is both for state governments and to the private sector. And what are they? And as Mr. Poonawalla said somewhere, that I'm not looking for profits, I'm looking for super profits. Is this the time to make super profits? So, what is government's intention? I'm just so confused.
Yeah.
I also sat in that seat. I would have been appalled if this kind of decision making was going on.
just to play devil's advocate, Ms. Rao, there was a point of view at one point saying open it up and let those who can afford it pay at whatever price is required for whichever vaccine, and save your money and your resources for those who need it the most. What would have been a more a clearer and more equitable way to have structured this?
See, under the universal immunization program, we give 14 vaccines. Okay. And there is one vaccine, say, called MMR. All these vaccines are available in the private sector also. In other words, Mitali, you may not have taken your baby to a government center for immunization. You might have gone to Apollo or to a private sector, okay, and paid for it. So the point is that there is a dual pricing of vaccines already in our country. And so if you go, you can get a flu shot for $1,500. Flu shot is not given by government hospitals.
Yeah.
Okay. So the private sector can, you leave it to them. They will go negotiate. They'll get a Pfizer vaccine for you. They'll charge you 2,000 rupees a dose. And if you have the money, go buy it. Happily go to Apollo and you take that shot. Nobody's objecting that. But this is hardly what? It's an upper middle class, small segment of India's population.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about the masses. A middle class family. Now, what are you saying to the, I don't know what the rules are. If the government of India says we will give you the vaccines only for 45 plus, then are they saying that the age group 18 to 45, that means the remaining 300 million population, will be vaccinated at market determined prices by the states? There are lots of poor people. And so if the state doesn't have money and they charge, say, even $100, my maid cannot afford 500 rupees for one shot for 5 members in their family and 1,000 rupees on a vaccine, which we don't even know the efficacy of. Because we don't know how long this vaccine lasts, maybe 6 months. And we have already, they're talking about a booster dose for COVAX. So, this is completely not thought through at all. I'm 100% certain that this did not come through the bureaucratic channels. It's not possible.
What happens to that remaining 50% that the center holds on to for itself? I mean, what onus?
That they will supply to the states as a grant. That they will supply to the states, I believe. I'm sure, to cover the poor people. Okay. That already that Ayushman Bharat has a classification of socially, economically backward. So I'm sure that itself is 40 crores or something like that. So they might supply to them, that's possible. And that's a good policy. I have no problem with that. But I'm just saying that, that you can't leave the states to a market. I don't even mind saying, look, we don't have the money. Everybody please pay and buy your vaccine. Like I can buy my own vaccine. Honestly, I don't need it to be supplied free of cost.
Yeah.
But fix the price.
Yeah.
Don't leave it to Poonawalla to tell me that he's going to sell it to me for $1,000 a dose. What for? Why should he be making super profits when every other sector in the economy has bled thanks to COVID?
There are also reports that Uttar Pradesh, as one state, has announced that they are going to provide free vaccination for all as a state. Does this sort of muddy the pitch even more, you think, in terms of what the capability or capacity?
I think it's I think it's very silly that the central government is making state governments divert their scarce resources. As it is, UP is one of the laggard states right at the bottom of the heap. Yeah. And they have no hospitals, they have no oxygen. People are dying unnecessarily. They're not dying because you did the best, gave them the highest quality treatment. They're dying because they're not getting access to basic treatment. So instead of using the little money that UP has in ramping up infrastructure, they're going to spend it on vaccine, which is a one-time expenditure, which easily the central government could have funded. What is that 35,000 crores they have provided for vaccines in the budget? What is that for? What is the PM CARES money? I believe it's more than 20,000 crores. I don't know. What is that money? So there is money with the central government. So why do they want the states to rummage already? There's no money there, and then give up wellness clinics, give up all other programs, give up TB, give up all the things and spend it on vaccine. It's all silly.
You wrote on Twitter yesterday, Ms. Rao, the vaccine policy announced yesterday is completely biased towards pharma companies. It's neatly shifted the confusion and chaos that will emerge from the 1st of May away from itself and towards the state governments. Never seen such abdication of fundamental duty. What are the options in front of states now? Do they have legal options in terms of examining?
See, what's happened is the states are now going to be asked to fund the bill, go to the market, negotiate your price and supply it, right?
Yeah.
So now the responsibility is there. And the most vocal population groups are the 18 to 45-year-olds. No 80-year-old is standing in the queue.
Yeah.
Now, it's this group that's going to bring a lot of pressure, saying that we have been made eligible, give us a vaccine. And neither is a vaccine available, nor will the state governments be able to afford it, nor can the state governments be able to say, look, please wait till December. Slowly we will clear the backlog, okay? Now, right now, when the government of India said first frontline workers, then the frontline helpers, then old people, then morbidities and all that, there was a certain scientific basis for stratifying that population groups. And it was also in sync with the supply of vaccines. It was going in tandem. Now you open the whole universe. You don't have vaccine on the one hand. You're not sure. The negotiations itself will take a long time. You don't know when the supplies will come. And you have every 21-year-old hanging on to you saying, vaccinate us. So under that kind of pressure, my fear is the state governments, first of all, will face they're going to face the brunt of the anger of the people, because the central government is going to be happily sitting in Delhi. And the central government will say, well, we allowed the states to procure. Let them go ahead and procure and face the music. And the second thing is that under whoever can shout the loudest is going to get the vaccine. It may not necessarily be those who need it most. So what it's going to do for the future of the trajectory of the epidemic, I don't know.
That was my final question to you, Ms. Rao. We are in the throes of a second wave, if you want to call it that is unimaginable in terms of the distress it's causing. It's hitting a much younger age group as well. We were, in any case, running very much behind the pace we should have struck in terms of vaccinations. How much of a gap do you think this further widens for us in our race to try and get people vaccinated? Also, pointing out the point that you made, which is that this is vaccine hesitancy of a different kind, where I don't hesitate to get it, but I cannot afford it.
Yeah, I mean, the vaccine hesitancy, this is really, Mitali, we are taking a lot of assumptions in mind. We don't know what the rules are. For all I know, tomorrow Government of India might say, we'll cover your cost, go ahead, fix your price and we'll reimburse. Maybe that's fine.
Okay.
And the companies may all say, no, we've ramped up so much that from tomorrow we will give you 1 billion doses. We don't know. I mean, we have to wait for these issues to tease out. But what I am saying is that the vaccine is not proven to stop transmission of the virus. So you've read enough and heard enough that those who got 2 doses have also got COVID after that. So what it can only do is reduce the severity of the disease in you and see that you don't die, because the deaths, even after taking vaccinations, have been abysmally low, very, very low. So that is proven that it won't cause deaths. So your mortality will reduce if people are vaccinated, but it may not necessarily stop the transmission. So if the vaccinations priority will have to be those who are getting most susceptible to mortality, so that they are saved from deaths. And that prioritization may get a hit, is what I fear. And they may continue to not only die, but also transmit the infection to others. So, it's all going to be a bit messy. We'll have to see further and wait for the government to spell out its policy more clearly. But from what it has been said and reported in the papers, I get the impression it's a very, very confused, not well thought out policy. And at present, it's completely in favor of the pharma companies. They have been given everything that they want, everything. So that's not a very nice situation to be in.
No, it isn't, particularly given the horrific nature of what many urban cities are living through even as we speak. Thank you so much for your time and for speaking with me and explaining this to our
Say.
viewers. Thank you, ma'am.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.